Hi, and welcome to the Lowe shop class. This time I'm making an entertainment center for my television and other AV equipment, and if you'd like to make one too, well, come on in the shop and let's get started. Now, this time we'll be looking at the plywood pieces that make up a lot of the components of our entertainment center. Let's start by looking at our plans. We've got the top and bottom, the ends, 2 dividers, 4 shelves, and 2 back panels. Now, we have a lot of matching pieces, so here's a tip to save you some cutting time. Take 2 pieces of plywood, sandwich them together, and secure them with screws. That way we can cut 2 pieces at once. But I'll start by marking all of my parts on the top layer, and that'll show me where my waste is. That's where I put the screws so I don't mar anything I'll use later. At this point, you're probably looking at this full sheet of plywood saying, how do I get this to the table saw? Well, you don't have to, because we're going to use a circular saw to cut oversized blanks, and then we'll take those blanks to the table saw for a good smooth cut. But I'll start by making a circular saw guide. And to do this, I'll measure from the edge of the circular saw base to the blade. Then I can cut 2 scrap pieces to that size that I can use whenever I want. But remember, anytime you use power tools, always wear eye protection and hearing protection. I'll use these guides to find the right placement for my fence, which in this case is going to be a 1x4 that I clamp to my plywood. Then I'll just run the circular saw up the edge of that fence. Once my first cut is done, I can reposition the guide and the fence and make the rest of my cuts. After all of your oversized blanks are cut, you can take them to the table saw for their final trims. Once you have your top, your bottom, and your ends cut, take the length of one of your ends and subtract the thickness of 2 pieces of plywood. That gives you the length of your dividers. Mark your dividers and cut them on the table saw. And those are all of our plywood pieces. Now, before you do anything else, this is a great time to mark them all so you can keep everything straight. Now, the top, the bottom, and the center shelf all have pocket holes. And I'll use a pocket hole jig to make those. I'm going to use this smaller version because it's easier on larger pieces like this. I'm also going to use this iron-on veneer for our plywood pieces. It'll help to cover up the rough exposed edge and give it a cleaner look. Now, for each edge, I'll measure the length, and then I'll cut a veneer 1 inch longer than that measurement. Then I can attach it using a standard household iron. Just remember to keep the iron moving down the length of the veneer. Once it's ironed on, I can use a utility knife to cut it to the exact length. Now, as a final step, I'm going to sand all of our plywood pieces with some 220 grit sandpaper just to smooth things out. I'm using a random orbit sander, and with these sanders it's important to remember to keep it flat against your work surface and go lightly on the veneer. Finally, remember to feel things with your hand to find any rough spots you may have missed. So join me next time for video 2 when we put all of these pieces together and I create the doors. I'll see you then.